and welcome to Creative Confidence. I'm Angela Nicholson and I'm the founder of SheClicks.
Hello, I'm Katie from Kudosity.
Katie and I are joined today by Carolyn Mendelsohn, a fantastic photographer who has been working on some amazing projects, one of which recently featured on the BBC. So hi Carolyn, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm happier for seeing your two really smiley faces today.
Oh, thank you. It is lovely to see you. And you've been having quite an exciting time recently, haven't you?
I have. It's very bizarre. It's kind of bizarre to be at home still doing Zooms and then lots of work on the outside. But yes, really exciting.
Yeah, because the last time I saw you actually in person was January 2020, and we bumped into each other at an event, and you were telling me about all these amazing things that were going to happen that year. And then, of course, we all know what happened a couple of months later, and everything kind of stopped, and you had a real sit down and think. And just maybe you could just explain to people where you are at now, what's actually happening for you at the moment.
So I'll just leap back to 2020. I was talking to you, Angela, about a portrait series I've been working on for about 6 years and how it was going to be exhibited and published. And then, of course, lockdown happened and all my commercial work and all my personal work and my exhibition just disappeared. So it was quite devastating, actually. It was going to be, 2020 was going to be my year. It really was. And then I was thinking, what on earth is happening? And as I saw, not only were these great opportunities, had they disappeared, but also my bank balance was like going like that. It was very scary. And I'm sure we can all identify with it. And then I turned that around by setting up a different project called Through Our Lens, where I work with teenagers, young people through lockdown to enable them to tell their story. And that grew and grew and grew and is still ongoing. But whilst that happened and the success of that project, I put all my energy into every single ounce of my energy into that project. My publisher got back to me last summer and said, Carolyn, let's do your book. And I had put it to bed. I put my book to bed. I thought, I can't even think about that anymore. So he set up a Kickstarter for pre-orders. Lots of wonderful people came on board, including Nicholson, and the book was then published. Here, just really quickly. so that was a complete dream come true. It was hard work doing it over lockdown, doing everything virtually. And then what happened next was the gallery said to me, let's install at the end of the year 2020, because we had opened up a bit. So we installed the work in December at Impressions Gallery, which is a national, though it's in Bradford, it's actually a national contemporary photography gallery. So got the work printed, got the work installed, we made some films, only suddenly then to be told that we were going to go into another lockdown. So, but what we had to do was turn that around. So Impressions Gallery were fantastic, and they worked on with an organisation to do a wonderful virtual exhibition of the work. We did an online launch, and the wonderful thing about that was that people could come online from all over the world to the launch. And then after that, I did various talks about the work, various workshops about the work, and then I noticed as time was going on, the workshop was, the exhibition was going on until April. I lost hope that any real person was ever going to walk into that gallery. And I was keeping, you know, when you keep things inside, I thought, I just have to accept this. I just have to think this was the big exhibition that is there, but no one can see, never mind. And then what they did at Impressions Gallery, which I am so grateful for, was they extended it. So they moved the whole program, which was so kind of them to enable the work to be open to the public. And that work was open. Was opened on the 18th of May in a wonderful exhibition. And then another amazing thing happened is that Impressions Gallery got together with the Art Fund, and they put this together during lockdown to do this project called Open Out. So they are opened out, being in between, onto the side of a very old building, 8 of the portraits, about 25 times life size. It's huge, onto the side of an old NatWest building. It's a beautiful old building opposite Waterstones. And it looks fantastic. The BBC picked it up. The work has been seen a lot. I do worry, guys. I do worry, everyone, that people will be going, oh, that work. But I've worried all the way through from the start that people will be sighing, going, that work again. That's my little voice on my shoulder. But the one.
That's interesting.
Yeah, lots of that going on, lots of self-talk for me. The interesting thing for me, though, and what helps me, is that I don't see it as my work. I see it as a project where I work in collaboration with the subjects of the project, they're girls aged between 10 to 12. And when I see that work exhibited, I just think, those girls are being seen. So I don't think, wow, look at my amazing photography. I just think, those girls are being seen, those girls are being heard, and that's what I focus on, and that fills me with a huge amount of joy. So,
and the photographs, when you see them outside, I've not actually been to Bradford to see the exhibition, but from the photographs that I've seen, and you said it's 25 times life size, but they've put them in kind of like, they look like they're in frames, don't they? Because they're in the window frame effectively, and they look so iconic.
They look amazing. I was so worried. So, you know, you might notice there's a little theme going on: worry, anxiety. I was worried that I was excited about that work being on that scale. I was also worried that it would not work at that scale. And so the printers who are printing up that work came over with the version of it, so I could proof it and look at it. And I thought, no, this is going to be fine. And I really trusted them because I knew they wanted it to be good. And they did it on a kind of matte vinyl, so it goes with the work that's exhibited in the gallery. It's not a great shiny picture. And it goes completely. It's amazing with that old building. It just they fit. And I just look up and think, wow, you know, the portraits that were selected were a selection of girls from Bradford. So I just think, wow, those Bradford girls are really have their space now. They're taking their space. And the response has been really exciting.
What do you think is the cause of your little, you know, nagging doubt on your shoulder that's sort of saying, oh, that makes you think that people might think, oh, no, not that work again? Because I haven't seen anybody anywhere ever comment about that. The only thing I've ever heard people say is, wow, what insight the girls have got, what amazing photographs, they look great, you know, all positive stuff. So what is it that's made you, do you think, have doubts that people might be bored of it?
I think I've always had that fear. I think I've always had the feeling of you're only as good as your last job as well. You know, I worked before working in photography, and I worked in film and theatre as a director, and you were always only as good as your last job. You could never sit on your laurels. So every new thing was a new thing. So even though being in between has kind of proven itself, I guess I still have those things in my head. But, you know, I just live with them, and I think that's fine. I do not let them disable me. I know that it's my voice is talking, and there may very well be people that don't like that work. But I just think, well, you know, I think that's their problem. So I don't take what they have to say personally. I don't take the criticisms that some people might say, because obviously the work is, particularly because the work was on the BBC, there will be, you know, there are trolls out there. I've seen some of those trolls, but I just don't read what they have to say because I just think it's people stirring stuff. So yeah, and I think the whole thing about me and my worry, it's just how I am. And I do switch it off. I do think, oh, it doesn't matter, you know. It's, yeah.
I think there's a massive difference between having the worry, and it's an interesting word that you use, like disable you or potentially disable you from moving forward or from being creative. And I think that throughout, you know, this whole, I mean, we met, I think we said it was like 2016, which is a bit bonkers, but we were, you know, I think John Cohen from Fujifilm, he introduced us and we connected pretty much immediately, just because what you were doing and how you were doing it and why you were doing it, your purpose and kind of your mission was so clear, was so distinct, and it was all, you know, it was all driven by you, and it was all driven, you know, the purpose for what you did and the project for Being in Between has got such a global narrative that you presented it in a way where everybody, from, you know, regardless of which country you could be looking in on, you know, whether it's seen on the BBC or CNN or wherever, can totally understand the project and the photography and the photographer behind it. So what I found really interesting is that when we've talked about, you feel that it's very much a collaborative work, that it's, you know, that you are, that these girls that you are, and the reason behind the project is showing them and letting them have their voice. There's also that without you as the professional photographer choosing that narrative, seeing that, you know, and wanting to help them tell the story wouldn't perhaps be told. So I think it's really interesting that you know, you come from a film director, you know, production kind of background. Storytelling is part of you, but as a professional photographer, you kind of, do you feel that being a photographer enabled that story to be told in a way that other creative mediums might not have been?
I think story is always at the center of everything that I do. Even if it's a kind of commercial commission story, I always grab hold of a story and a kind of narrative of some kind. So I would say that photography is part of my toolkit for telling the story. So my camera is my toolkit, but also I record their voices. So the sound, I use the soundtrack, I use their words, and I layer all those things. I always see them as the camera is the tool to, but also I'm wanting the end product to be really high quality. You know, I'm very rigorous about that. I want them to feel proud, and I want people to sit in front of those portraits and be drawn into them. I don't want them to shout at people. Does this make sense? I don't want those portraits to shout. I want people to be drawn into their story because the portraits are compelling. So I think as a photographer, it's lovely for me to use different art forms, and I'm known as a photographer, but I think all my background feeds into that.
Yeah.
And I think one thing maybe people possibly forget is, it's, you know, if you think this looks like a beautiful roast dinner that's been well prepared and it look, that's a really bad analogy. What am I saying? Sorry, forget the roast dinner. What I'm trying to say,
cake with all the decoration.
Yeah.
You can't see the kitchen that's absolutely totaled.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to say is it's a step-by-step project. So what you see is the end product.
Yeah.
I've worked very slowly and steadily through the years on this piece of personal project, this piece of work. And so it's kind of probably possible for people to look at it and go, well, you know, obviously she's done really well. Her work is like this. It's seen here, there, and everywhere. But me, like everyone else who may be tuning into this, starts at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I start everything at the very beginning. I even start projects now at the very beginning as if I had never done it before. And I look at it very step by step.
I think that's really interesting as well, because the success that Being in Between has had quite rightly, is, you know, is huge. To kind of like drop it, oh, well, you know, it's been on the BBC. The BBC's massive, you know, everybody knows the BBC, and to see your work featured there is incredible, and to have it, you know, physical exhibitions, etc., all of, and a physical book. But like you say, this process has been really, really long, and it's been arduous, and to do this throughout, you know, a global pandemic, not something that you look at when you're sort of training or thinking, oh yeah, what shall I put as possible things to overcome in a business plan. But with all of the things that you've learned over the last year and a half, not just from the project, but adapting and kind of pivoting, I suppose, to be able to produce the work in a different way, how has that left your mindset for approaching new projects moving forward? Because like you say, you can kind of look at the success that is still ongoing with that project. Does that put you in a different mindset or a different way in which you'll approach your new work, even though you mentioned that you would approach it tactically in the same way, methodically?
Yeah.
But I wonder if in your mind you're thinking different thoughts to perhaps you would have done a year and a half ago.
You know, absolutely. And what I have learned from the lockdown, from the pandemic, is I have seen things more clearly. I think it gave us a quietness. So my work got out there, but mainly because it was very quiet in the world. So therefore, if your work was out there, it was seen more than before. What it's taught me is that I want to do things that give me joy. So this work gives me joy. The other project I was doing, which I'm still doing, is Through Our Lens, gives me a huge amount of joy. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm in a position now just to take on work that gives me joy. I put my heart and soul into it. It doesn't stop it being rigorous, and it doesn't stop it being really hard work, but just to take on commissions that I want to take on, and to do work that's driven by my heart and by my kind of skills. So as a result of being in between and its success and its visibility, I've been invited to be artists in residence to deliver a similar kind of project for a huge health survey called Born in Bradford, which I know is sort of still Bradford, but it's actually the largest health survey of young people, of children and young people in the world. It's huge.
Wow.
And so because of that, they want me to be in residence a couple of months a year, doing a similar kind of project with their oldest cohort. I was delighted. I thought that's fantastic, you know. So I think and also I have my personal projects that I will start up again. I just think if I can do work that gives me joy and some money, to do my personal projects that don't bring in money, but maybe get my work out there, then that's perfect. I don't feel as clouded as I was before lockdown. You know,
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And when you started shooting your project, Being in Between, I mean, you started, it was 6 years, wasn't it, of shooting?
Yeah.
Was it just a personal project then that grew and grew into something that you felt could become an exhibition, or was it always an ambition that it was going to be an exhibition and a book?
It's weird, you know, because when I suddenly came upon me to do the work, it was almost like there in my head. I could see it really clearly. I could see how I wanted those portraits to be. I could see them in a gallery. Before I'd even really got into it. It was just so clear and so simple. There was a real simplicity to the idea. Getting the idea to happen to become real, obviously, is another discipline. I was already reasonably well known at that point as a lifestyle photographer, but my heart was in, I have to tell stories. You know, it's lovely being seen as lifestyle photographer, being in magazines, doing this and that, but you know, my heart is the narrative and the stories, and I could see it. And I remember I did call outs for the work, and then I started to share the work and share the interviews. And within like 3 or 4 months, I had a meeting with the gallery, and they said, we'd love to exhibit this. This was so early on. I was like, oh, okay, pressure on. So I then had to like really, in that first year, get a whole lot of work done. But they had faith in it from the start. I think the aesthetic was there from the start. And at that point, you know, I think what I'd like to share with everybody is that I take massive risks. So having your work out there is a huge risk. Having it out on a public platform is a huge risk. You can fail, but I'm really not scared of failing. I don't think too hard about it. I'm very open to it failing. But also I get that work out there, and then I invite people to see the work. So I think we talked about John Cohen. Well, that work was printed in the first exhibition onto Fuji Photo Rag, which I really liked. And I think I had met John Cohen at a convention at some point, but only briefly. And I thought, there's that man from Fujifilm. There's that man. Where is he? And he wasn't on social media. And I wasn't going to pester people, but I went on this big big exercise to try to find him. And I eventually found him on something like LinkedIn.
He'll be thrilled to hear this. You know, he will be delighted to get this.
Oh, really? I found him on LinkedIn, and I remember I thought he may remember me. I think my work had been, I'd done some fashion photography, it had been up for an award, and he was there. So I think he may remember me, and but he may not. So I found him on LinkedIn, and I'm not saying to everyone, go and pile in to me, but he's retired now anyway. John is, well, not, he's working, but anyway, I remember emailing, and I didn't think too hard. This is what I do. It's almost like I'm a kid sometimes. I found him, I thought, oh, I'll write him a message, and it was literally like, hi, it's Carolyn, you probably don't remember me, but I've got this work and it's on your amazing paper, and I really would love you to see it. And then and it's on this date, and then I press send, and then I thought, what have I done? What have I done? How embarrassing. So it's almost like I'm like such a child, and I am still like that. Somebody described me as the youngest older person that she knew. I think I'm very much like that. And then I just thought, oh no, that's really embarrassing. And then he just got back to me, so I'd love to see it. And that was the start of him being like a mentor, really. He went to see it. He didn't even know whether he would be taken with the work, but he loved it, and then he came on board. And then in that exhibition I invited other people. Rosie Millard, who's was an arts correspondent, a journalist, was chair for City of Culture in Hull at that point. I kept on going, please see this work on Twitter, please see this work. And then eventually she saw it, and she said, let's meet. And she and this really helped me. I remember her saying to me, it's really powerful work, Carolyn. It should be in the National Portrait Gallery. It should be here, it should be there. And I said, yeah. I remember having a breakfast meeting with her, and I remember going, yeah, right, Rosie. Like, I'm going to knock on the door of the National Portrait Gallery and going, hiya, this is my work. It should be on your walls. I said, yeah, and they'll just think I'm a crazy middle-aged lady. And then she looked at me and she really told me off. And I never want to hear you describe yourself like that again. Stop that. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. But people like that really have helped me understand that the work could be seen beyond my original vision by other people. And so I kind of think if you can bring people on board, don't expect them to go along with you, but just invite them. If you think they may connect with your work in some way, invite them to see it. So I will take that risk. They can say no, but it actually doesn't matter if they do, does it really?
And also the way in which you approached people, for example, John, you know, not everybody may feel that they are able to, you know, to reach out to people on either social media or whatever, because they feel like they're being, you know, this stranger approaching somebody. But if you do it in the right way, and if you do it without the intent of selling, you know,
Yeah.
and you find the common connection. There's a very different conversation to be had. And the way in which you did it, I think, was really smart, because you connected with John because you knew that John's association with Fujifilm and the paper. So there was a value in him seeing your work. You know, if it was a series of work that maybe he didn't feel a connection with, then fine. But there was still the way in which you introduced yourself. There was potential value to John in his business too. And the conversations and the way in which you connect with people may not be for everyone. That may not feel comfortable to them. But what is interesting, and what the things I would hope people see from it and the takeaways from it, is that you've always put the work first. This isn't, I've got something that I really want, I want you to look at funding the book. I want you to look at the exhibition. This is the purpose of this project. This is the story behind it. I have worked with these people in order for us to make this project resonate globally. It's always the photography, always the project first, rather than what can you do for me? And I think that is a very important lesson people need to kind of hear. It doesn't have to be look at me, look at my work, it's amazing. It's about how you network yourself without being a networker. And introverts can do it, extroverts, everybody can learn how to do it in a way that's comfortable to them. But it's not about the sell. It's about the messaging. It's about what's the story? What is the human connection between all of these things that we do?
Absolutely. I think, I feel really lucky that people have connected to the work, but I've never asked for things. People go, how have you got this sponsorship? How have you got that? That is never what my intention is. Yeah. My intention is to create connections, to show people, and occasionally it will be, do you think we could work together on this?
Yes, of course.
Occasionally it will be that, but generally I'm really excited. I'm really excitable. I'm really excited, but I'm also quite sensitive. So I try to balance it. And I want those relationships to be real and authentic. And I don't think too hard about how I connect. I don't overthink it. But I think I connect on the basis of they may actually be interested in this because they have a connection to this in some way. It's never, are they going to fund me? Are they going to sponsor me? What can I get from them? I never expect that, actually. And I think once you've built those relationships up, then you can sometimes say, look, I've got this project. Are you interested in it? Do you think it could work for you? It doesn't matter if it doesn't, but maybe you could advise me. But that's once those relationships have been built up. And I think, people forget that people that work in big organizations are like me and you,
They are. Do you think that it helps generally with... well, I'm saying your confidence that you're trying to talk to people about somebody's story? So you're not sort of saying, look at my photographs, as you already said, but you're saying, look at this story. This is an important message. There's something really interesting here. Do you find that really kind of, I guess in some ways it might add pressure because you're really keen to get these other people's stories heard. But do you think it also adds to your confidence levels from the point of view of you're not having to say, hey, look at me. You're saying, hey, look at them, look at their story.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, that's always the first for me, and that helps. I don't think, I'm really deeply uncomfortable if I was introduced as Carolyn Mendelsohn award-winning photographer, la, la, la. And sometimes people meet me and they go, oh, you're Carolyn. Like, what do they expect?
Sit on a chariot.
Yes, I'm there with my crown. But I think I'm always just me. The story, and it's not even as if I say the stories I'm passionate about, that I am passionate about, the stories, I try not to force them onto people. I want people to discover them, but I want to create a way for them to discover them that is on people's terms. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. And I think I would never, if I look back 10 years, I would like think, whoa, how the heck did you do that? How did you do that? And so I did it step by step. I followed an idea, and you know, you follow an idea over a long period of time, you lose faith. Okay, I lost faith occasionally in that idea, even if it had won an award or even if it was seen in lots of places. Occasionally I'd be thinking, why am I doing this? I'd question myself, and then once I restarted shooting and doing portrait sittings, it would all come back. And do you know the story of Being in Between is obviously, well, not obviously, won't be obvious to everyone, obviously to me, it's based on me and my memory of that time. That was my driver for it.
Yes, I do remember you mentioned that before, so it's kind of based on a confidence issue you experienced kind of age 12, 13, was it?
No, it was 10, 11,
10.
12. 10,
Right.
11, 12, and it's very much based on my memories of being that age and how suddenly I felt uncomfortable, and suddenly the things that people said to me shaped how I was growing up and how I was becoming, and the big huge thoughts in my head, like big existential thoughts in this small 10-year-old head that I thought I was going completely bonkers. And I wanted to kind of, as an adult, to explore that age and to you know, give those girls an opportunity to see their story, I guess, and to say, however you are is a powerful and brilliant thing. It doesn't matter what other people have to say about you. So that was my starting point.
How important is it on your personal projects that you go into a different mindset for those, or do you go into a different mindset when you're sort of switching off and using photography to just kind of decompress, I suppose?
Personal projects are, and I will always say this, are like my beating heart. That's why I do photography. I don't think I could do anything commercial if I wasn't doing the personal work, because I would lose the purpose of it for me. It's not a technical exercise for me. It's about creating some magic with the camera, with somebody else. And I think I do go into a different mindset. I think there's a lot of sacrifices that you make if you want to do a rigorous personal project, because you're not getting paid. Very occasionally, I'd get a bit of Arts Council funding in an exhibition, but that was really occasionally. But for the project, I never asked for any money. I had to borrow spaces. I had to do it every bit was in my own time. I never questioned that because I was the one that chose to do it. Yeah, I think I will always find a project to do, and even if it's a small one, even if it's just to keep me going, really, it's kind of to nurture my own creativity as well, and to push myself.
I was going to ask you, at what point when you're working on a project do you feel that you're most confident? And it sounds like it's actually when you've got the camera in your hand and you're doing the shooting, from what you said before. Is that true? I
love that relationship when I'm doing the portrait sittings and the shoots and the interviews. The beforehand, I worry. I have to set all my equipment up. I'm like worried it's all going to go wrong. But because it's entirely my responsibility, then I feel very confident. But you know what I really love? Oh my goodness, I love it when it's in exhibition. The before the exhibition is a bit nerve-wracking. If you're having to make new prints and it's being installed, it's nerve-wracking. But I just like sitting there in the exhibition, just looking at it going, that's amazing. Not I'm amazing. It's never I'm amazing. It's like, how? You know, this is like, wow. It's happened. It's just happened. And when I look back and I see step by step how much has happened, how it's happened is, or it's very incremental. You know, people have come on board incrementally, and I've put my work out there. And when it's won an internet, you know, it tends to win a more art photography competition. So, for example, the International Photography Exhibition that the RPS do. So it won that, and it got onto the Sunday Times. I cried. I cry everything. I cried. I couldn't believe it. It was my dream that was never going to happen. But so when it does things like that, then that's amazing for me. I can't quite believe it. I quite like revisiting those and thinking, wow, you know, that's how that work was seen. That's how it became on a different platform. I never expect new projects to enter immediately onto that global or national or international platform. They happen because you are working, because I'm working incredibly hard, and because I have been lucky in that it's been selected. Does this make sense? When I enter competitions with personal work, I don't expect to get selected. I send it out there because I'm wanting people to see it. I'm wanting those, again, if it's being in between, I want those girls' stories to be told. I'll put it in front of them. I'll wear them down after a few years of entering. so when I, you know, it could be that I don't get, I'm one of the many thousands that doesn't get selected. That happens, you know, that happens to me all the time. People only see the successes, but that's fine. I don't get upset. You know, I think that's really important, to be resilient and to pick the things that you're going to do, but to be resilient and not to let it bother you too much.
There might be a good point. We've got a question, I think, that you might like to have a think about, which is someone's asked, they said, I'm afraid of not delivering to high standards, and at the same time, not quite sure how to achieve those high standards. So she just wonders if you have any advice for someone like her.
Yeah, I think, you know, your craft is an important thing. So if you feel, you know, it's interesting as well, though, because I remember doing the first few shoots for Being in Between, and I felt really insecure about my lighting. And I remember going to Nikon, talking to Nikon and saying, I think it was Nikon School. I think I had a picture that was in one of their competitions, and I went and I said, you know, do you do lighting things? Because I'm really insecure about my lighting. They went, what's the problem? And I think I showed them the picture, and I said, well, you know what? I move my lighting all the time, and I think other people just have these fixed lighting, but mine. And they looked at me and they went, "That's good, Carolyn. That's good that you." I went, really? So you know, all these little things really help. And I think do I guess learn as much as you can, so you feel a little bit more comfortable in what you are delivering. It's all, the wonderful thing about photography is there's always more to learn, but don't let that stop you from starting at a point where you haven't learned everything. You know, it's all about experimenting and trying and learning bit by bit. If there are things that you're not confident, it may be that you're just not confident rather than you're just not good enough. If there are things that you're just not confident enough, then put yourself on, go on a course. If you think I don't feel technically competent with this, there are so many courses you can go on. So I think just that may make you feel more comfortable or more confident in that. But also, I learned through doing. So that work over that period of time, I've changed it at periods of time. I've learned to do it in different ways. I'll share something with you. Sorry.
Oh, go on.
Okay, I was doing this talk and I was doing a demo. So, and I got somebody to help me put my lights up, but I was like attaching the like the soft boxes and the beauty dishes to my lights from stands, and I was taking these things and trying to attach them onto my stands. And this person said to me, Carolyn, you shouldn't be doing it like that. That was somebody who was attending my talk. And I went, oh, really? I said, how should I be doing it? And she said, put it on the ground. I went, okay, she'll put that on the ground. Then you get the light, and then you put the light like, so, you know, but I'm not proud. I went, oh, I didn't know that. And so I've learned, I will make mistakes in public sometimes, and I'm really absolutely fine if people not necessarily call me out, people show me a better way of doing it.
I think that's really fun. I would have loved to have seen that. It's like, hold everything, just going to put this on the floor. We'll work this out. It's fine.
Rather than like,
I need some extra arms, please.
yeah.
Well, I think the thing about doing is really, really important, because particularly now we've got such resources at our fingertips. You know, you can watch YouTube videos and there's online courses and all sorts of things, which are really great. But you can sit and write notes and you can learn it, but you actually have to do it and set your camera to those settings and move in that direction and point it at the subject and angle the lights and move stuff around to really see it and feel it and understand it. It's kind of like building up muscle memory, I think, isn't it?
And it's also, sometimes I'll do things and they'll look terrible and I'll think, okay, and I'll look at it and I think that lighting's appalling. How can I change it? I see those mistakes as great because they teach you then, don't let it put you off. Just look at it really carefully and think about it and work out how you could do it in a different way.
And also, I think that reframing the kind of the problem. I think the question was about, I've got really, really high standards and I'm worried that my photography won't reach those high standards. Was that, I think that was
it was just problems of not being sure how they get the right standards.
And I think sometimes that by reframing that question into how can I improve, what am I good at and how can I improve, suddenly you're dropping down 2 gears of pressure by saying, you know, by these ideals of high standards, suddenly you start thinking, gosh, it needs to be, this image that I need to take needs to be perfect, it needs everything to be on point. Well, if you start off thinking that, you will never press the shutter, because you will be literally that kind of fear and paralysis of, I am not going to get this right. So just be careful about the kind of ways in which you frame problems to yourself, because before you've even challenged that, you're feeling like you're going to be failing. So, you know, I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And something I always say, so I've been working with these young people for a long time, not the being in between young people, but the through our lens young people. And I always say, and I say this to adults as well, do your worst.
Yeah.
Do your worst. I want to see your worst so that you're not afraid to make mistakes, to learn. And it almost frees people up. You stop worrying about, is this going to be judged? And also, the other thing is that you can have assistance. If you're not a brilliant lighting person, you can find people that are really good at lighting. You can work together with people and you can learn through that as well. So there are ways of doing things.
That's really good point, actually, because one of my favorite photographers is Annie Leibovitz, and she is well known for not being that technically minded when it comes to the lighting, but what she is brilliant at is visualizing how she wants the light to look. So she gets somebody who kind of knows how to make it do that and do this, and then says, right, okay, and she gets the, you know, she explains her creative vision and gets them to light it, and then she takes the shot. You know, and there's no shame in that. I think she's a brilliant photographer.
I think all really well recognized photographers will have a whole ranch of assistants who are doing different things. And she probably does know how to light, but it might not be what she wants. She wants to be concentrating on the creative vision of it, but she will have had an understanding of what she wants in order to be able to explain to them. But I think I did a huge tableau and there were 32 people in it. And I thought, how am I going to light this? I went into panic. And then I spoke to a friend who said, I'll bring all my lighting. Don't worry about it. I will assist you. So we lit it together. And I think that really helps. So if it's a big project you're doing, you could bring people on board, you know, or you can, I know it's difficult in pandemic times, but when things open up a bit more, it may be, if you're lacking in confidence, you can get 1 or 2 of you together to try things out, to experiment and to practice.
Yeah, and that's great fun as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sharing with someone like that. We've got a couple of more questions. First one is, someone says she's been offered her first exhibition that will be created by the National Trust in autumn 2023. So congratulations on that.
Amazing.
But she needs to raise funding to pay for printing and framing, and she's no idea how to approach that. And obviously that's a process you've been through. So just wondering whether you have any advice for her, perhaps, you know, focusing on how you think about it and approach it rather than specifics of who to go to.
So I think, first of all, I think about, how do I want this to look? What paper do I want it to be on? How do I want it framed? So in the early days, if I have a relationship with a printer or a framer, then it may be that I say, would you be interested in sponsoring some of this, and we can work together on it. Doesn't always work because they need to make money, you know, but I do that. I think for an exhibition, you need to think about, ask, or the National Trust might have areas of pools of funding, or at the moment, the gallery that I'm very fortunate in my current exhibition, because they are a funded gallery and they pay for all of that. But there are pots of funding, the Arts Council. It's not easy though. It's not easy, and I think it would help you if you're going to the Arts Council to help put it to raise funds to exhibit. It will be good for you to have partners together to go through that application together. But yeah, I think talk to other photographers, make connections, see whether you can get anyone on board. Yeah, it's difficult because it's really expensive to mount work, really expensive.
So basically do your research, and like you were saying earlier, don't be afraid to fire off those emails that you then later think, oh my God, what have I said?
Yeah, I think if the work is strong and people are interested and it has a public presence, then that is a potential route. Yeah, there are little pots of funding that you can apply for. So yeah, good luck. It's
exciting.
Fantastic that you've got that exhibition, and I think you've got a couple of, you know, you've got, was it 2023? Well, that's really great because you've got enough time to kind of really look at where that funding will come from, or sponsorship will come from.
And I guess it's also an opportunity to think about the messages which are within your photography. Who is it going to appeal to?
Yeah.
What is it about? Whose story is it helping? You know, so all potential people to look at. Then we've got another question, which is basically saying that one of the issues that they're facing is the fear of letting down their teachers, which I think is you know, I can appreciate that, because when someone's been teaching you, you then want to demonstrate that they have been successful because you're successful. How do you handle that kind of thing?
Well, I never had any teachers, so I don't worry about it. I taught myself, so I never really had teachers as such. But I do know what you're saying. You've probably built up really strong relationship with mentors and teachers who you've worked with, who've helped you with your photography. I think that feeling is more disabling than enabling. I think you need to find somewhere to park it.
Yeah.
You know, it's you, it's about you, and it's about doing your work. It's not about pleasing them. I think we often want to please people, want them to feel proud of us, want them to feel part of what we're doing. I mean, it may be that you can call on them for some advice. It may be you can say, you know, what would I do? If I had that feeling, I'd probably ring them up and go, oh, I'm just trying to please you all the time, and you don't even realize. So I think, you know, park it away. I think if somebody said that to me, I would laugh, not in a bad way. I would just laugh and say, don't worry. You know, I might give them advice. I might say, well, you could try, if it's not kind of quite going right, maybe try this or that. But I would want them to own what they're doing. I think you will become a better photographer for owning what you're doing and for developing your way of doing it. Take on board what you've learned, but you don't have to be your teacher in another form. You're you, and you have your own individual, unique voice.
Yeah.
When you've been working with teenagers, photographing their lockdown, that's exactly that was the whole point of that project, wasn't it? Because you wanted them to have their voice about the lockdown.
Yeah, that was all about do your worst. I give them skill. I pass on really usable skills. I think it's really important. I pass on skills. I don't want them to want to please me or to want to copy me. What they've learned to do, I get them to look at the work of artists and photographers to increase their visual vocabulary. And I think that the important thing is that it's their own unique voices, and it's your own unique voice which makes your work interesting.
I've just got one couple of things on the question before about the sponsorship. If you don't mind me dipping in, because I'm always sticking my nose in. But as somebody who, I used to receive quite a lot of emails for people looking for funding or looking for sponsorship, and just to help in terms of kind of the way in which you communicate those things to people when you're looking for potential sponsors, I would say be really, really clear about what it is that you're doing. So what is, what's your exhibition, or what's your purpose, make it really succinct. Imagine it's like a lift pitch. You got into the lift with somebody, they've got a potential to be able to help you out. You've got that one opportunity. How can you succinctly put together what it is that you are looking for and why? And also think about it. Don't think about sending out kind of a one version email to everyone. Look at what it is that they're doing within their space. So try and find out what they're trying to achieve. So if it's a camera manufacturer, are they trying to target a specific type of photographer, or are they trying to push a particular lens or a paper or a feeling? What's their story? What's their story? Because you kind of get a feeling when you're on the receiving end of one of those emails that it's kind of a dear insert name here, cut and paste, sincerely looking forward to hearing back from you. And if you're in a position where you have got 1,000 other things that are in your inbox that are really, really urgent, because you're looking at your direct line manager who's about to give you a kick up the butt if you don't do it, but you still want to be able to look, your purpose is to look within the community of photography, whether that's locally, in the UK, Europe, global, whatever. So make it really clear about what it is that you're doing, what you're looking to achieve with this particular partnership, and how by working together as a collaboration, you feel that you could help them and make them kind of the hero and part of the messaging as well. And additionally, I would also say, look at kind of beyond the realms of what you would normally think of as a sponsorship or as a collaboration, because it could be that there is a hotel nearby that, near your exhibition that you could work with and say, well, could we do something? I could do a photography talk at this hotel and we could offer some, some potential discounted rooms, or we could do some food photography at the hotel. Whatever it is, just try and think beyond the initial kind of, these are the kind of the sponsorship boxes that I should look at ticking, because the more creative that you can think of, the less pressure you'll feel to go, I need to get a camera manufacturer on board, I need to get a printer, I need to get an exhibit. It's suddenly massively overwhelming. Whereas if you think, right, who would I like to work with as well? So when you're looking for funding and sponsorship, think about the other person on the end of the email or the end of the LinkedIn, their time restraints, what they're trying to achieve, and how you can collaborate together. Just as somebody who used to get quite a few of those kind of messages is kind of how I would advise on that.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. As someone who often gets emails, dear valued, nothing says you're not valued by dear valued.
And I think that it also, I think it's about relationship building, you know, build relationships up. I know I maybe come across as super confident and I love talking, obviously, but when I'm in a room, probably when I first met you, Katie, I probably felt a little nervous, you know. So in real life, it can be nerve-wracking to talk to people, but just, I think, be kind, don't be pushy, be interested in them is so important. Build those relationships up is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good advice. And Carolyn, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned earlier that you worried about stuff and sometimes, you know, you feel a certain amount of pressure, and you just park it. But how do you get to the point of parking it? You know, do you literally just say to yourself, right, that's it, I'm not going to think about that anymore? Or is there a process you go through? Do you turn to somebody to talk about it? What do you do?
I probably torture my family for a couple of weeks. Okay, I'm so worried. How am I going? And they're like, oh, Mom, or oh, you're always like this. And I go, am I? Am I? Surely I'm not like this about everything I do. So I think, what do? I accept that's part of who I am. I just accept it. I park it. It's a process. And the whole, you know, the imposter syndrome, we all have it. Some of us admit to it. It's fine. That's just how it is. And I feel that anxiety for me is why I'm quite rigorous in how I work at things. It means that I make sure I'm really well prepared. As soon as I'm doing it, it disappears. As soon as I'm doing the work, it's all in my head. It just drops out of my ear and then I'm fine.
Well, Carolyn, it's been absolutely fantastic hearing from you, and it's really lovely to see you, even if it is through Zoom.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the time we can all be in the same space, which will be soon, hopefully.
That would be lovely. Best of luck with your exhibition. It's on until, is it the 24th of July?
24th of July, and I would so love it. People come to Bradford, come to West Yorkshire, Haworth, Bradford. There's so much to see, and I would absolutely love it if you went to see that work. Yeah, that would be great. So 24th of July. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.